I would like to just welcome you to Holliston, the Holliston High School here, and I would like to ask all of you to give a very big round of applause to the Holliston Democratic Town Committee for hosting this. And Beth Wheely is the chair. Beth is here. She does some terrific stuff. The Holliston Democratic Town Committee, like the other Democratic Town Committees in Metro West, and I have to say in the 2nd Middlesex and Norfolk, is very active. They're very proactive. They're always thinking of ways to create new opportunities for people to get involved in the democratic process and bring people in. And this is just but one more example of it, of bringing people in to make sure that they get a chance to hear the candidates, meet the candidates. And this is a little bit of a novel idea. It's not just having everybody get up to speak, because we can all go to other places for that. As you know, the format is people will have an opportunity to speak, the candidates will have an opportunity to speak, and then there will be some mingling. So you will have an opportunity to speak directly with candidates that you may not have had that opportunity previously, or you may have, but there are other burning issues that you want to ask. So I thank you for coming here. We all know democracy is only as strong as participation, as people participate. And I want to thank you for being here, because you are the heart and soul of the Metro West Democratic, not only the Democratic Party, but democracy here, in making sure that we keep this thing we love and hold dear to our hearts alive and well in Metro West. So I want to thank you all, and give yourselves a round of applause then. I do want to note also, for everybody's benefit, that Norma Schulman is here taping for cable, so you will be on cable, just to be aware of that, which will help others that may not have been able to be here as well. And with that, I would like to ask up my friend and colleague, Representative Carolyn Dykema. Give her a warm round of applause.
Karen, it's wonderful to be here. I also want to echo her sentiments around thanking the Holliston Democratic Town Committee for hosting this breakfast here today. This town committee is incredibly active, along with the Alliance and so many of the other local committees in Metro West. And Metro West, as you all know, because you're all active, is a key area for our state in terms of getting folks elected to higher office. So it's fantastic. We've got such a great turnout of candidates today. We're fortunate as Democrats to have a great turnout of a great choice in the election coming up. A lot of great candidates who I know need our help and need our support in making sure that we get some strong folks in office this November. And so this is a real opportunity for you to talk to them, as Karen had mentioned, hear directly from them, and really get a full sense of the candidates. It's a rare opportunity to have this kind of turnout for candidates that you can meet face to face and ask those questions about the issues that are important to you, to be able to look them in the eye and get a response and just get a feel for those candidates. So please take advantage of that while they're here. And I will end there, I guess, and turn it over to Beth and just say again, thanks for coming. And again, thank you to all the candidates, and thanks for all the work you do to keep Massachusetts strongly blue. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Senator Spilka and Representative Dykema for doing our welcomes this morning. They represent us here in Holliston, and we think they're kind of the best. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Relay for Life team. They helped us set up this morning, and they're here for their cause, so please be generous. And if you have more money than that in your pocket, we also have a little bucket going on in the back of the room. It says, "Don't let Scott Brown back in Washington." So let's fill this bucket for Jean Shaheen. So we're looking for anything you want to throw in that bucket, and we'll be sending it off to Shaheen's campaign. Okay, so I'm the sheriff today, okay? It's my job to herd these cats. And you know how difficult that can be because Democrats like to talk so much. So I'm going to ask you to please try to cooperate in any way that you can. Many of the candidates are on very tight schedules, so I'd like to keep this as close to schedule as possible. Our format is a little different this year, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about that. Our goal was to really have this be a little bit different way of communicating with candidates. We didn't want it to be just a Q&A from the audience. There are way too many candidates, and that's way too long to sit still. So we thought something more conversational and interactive would work. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be, first of all, each of the candidates for governor will be basically telling you who they are in 5 minutes. Then Brendan Shea, stand up, Brendan, our bouncer / timekeeper, will stand up after 5 minutes to let them know that it's time for them to wrap it up. If they just don't pay attention to Brendan Shea, I will give them the hook. After we've heard from all of the governor candidates, we're going to break for 20 minutes. And this is your opportunity to talk to the candidates for governor. I would like to ask you, please, not to monopolize their time, that a lot of people would like to talk to them, but please search them out and ask questions directly, have a conversation. Don't make it time to lobby for your favorite cause. I'm sure that each of you could spend hours with each of these candidates. So please keep it short so that many people can also reach out to the candidates in that 20-minute time period. Then I will come to the mic and say, okay, everybody sit down, and we will do the same thing with the lieutenant governor candidates. After that, we will hear from the treasurers, and we will take Q&A from the audience because it's a much smaller group of people, and then we'll also hear from the Attorney General candidates and take Q&A from the audience. We hope to be out of here by 1 o'clock. Wouldn't it be great if it was before that? But not happening. So please just try to cooperate and help us out. We had planned on going in alphabetical order, but I'm not sure, is Joe Avalone here? Okay, then Don Berwick, take it away.
Thanks, Beth, and thank you all for the chance to spend this morning with you. I really love this idea, this format. I'm going to keep my remarks really short because I think getting to chat with you one-on-one and two-on-one is going to be more productive for you. But I would like to make a few comments about motivation behind my campaign, just so you get to know me a little better. I want to start with a story, maybe because it's getting close to Mother's Day. You all want to run for governor sometime. It's amazing. You have these moments that you're going to remember the rest of your life. One happened for me a couple of months ago up in Ipswich. I was there for another breakfast by the Ipswich Democratic Town Committee, and all 5 of us spoke, Democratic candidates for governor, but the best speech was given by Finn Hackett. Finn is 10 years old. Here's the deal. It turned out that they wanted to use the beginning of that session to celebrate a miracle, I think, in Ipswich. It was the building of a playground. Not an obvious miracle, but let me tell you the story. The Winthrop School there needed a playground. It was broken down, non-handicap accessible, and so on. And so the town wasn't making progress, so some parents got together, and they asked permission, and they took the ball. They got donations from a world-class architect, from the lumberyard, from the hardware store, assembled the material, and then announced that on a certain date, it was September 9th actually last year, they would like volunteers from the town to come and help build the playground. 500 people came and stayed 5 days in a town of 13,000. 500 people did it. And to celebrate that, or to keynote it, they had a speech given by Finn Hackett. It was 1 sentence long, and I memorized Finn's speech. I called him and made sure I got it right. What Finn said was, not everybody is as lucky as I am to live in a place where so many people help. I've been trying to find words to express in this campaign what I regard as the essence of the bold progressive agenda that I want to represent in the corner office here. He got it exactly right. I'm a pediatrician. I'm an executive. I grew a nonprofit organization from nothing to world size. It's the largest of its kind in the world today, working all over the world to help make health and healthcare better. Then President Obama asked me to come to Washington to take over the largest agency by budget in federal government, Medicare and Medicaid. The Republicans tried to block me, like they blocked Elizabeth Warren. Glenn Beck called me the second most dangerous man in America. It was not a welcome mat, but I went, I did it, and I had an amazing time there defending the moral test. Showing up to help, I guess is the way I'd say it. Now I'm back here, and that's because I'm worried. This country is going off tracks with respect to Finn Hackett's vision. We're not showing up to help. Who's showing up to help the 3,000 hungry kids in this Commonwealth tonight, or 4,000 homeless families? I'm showing up to help Ronald Gibbs, a man I met who's living tonight in a motel room with his 4 kids and his partner. Who's showing up to help a worker who goes 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week and can't make ends meet for their family? Who's showing up for an undocumented neighbor of ours who just wants a fair shot at getting into this economy? Who's showing up for my grandchildren who are facing a warming planet with far too little reaction? There are 24,000 prisoners in our prisons in Massachusetts, half of whom have mental illnesses or behavioral substance abuse issues that need to be treated. We need to show up. I grew up in a really small town. In that town, if you were driving down a road and there was a car broken down on the side of the road, you stopped. You stopped to help. You got out and you rolled up your sleeves and you helped. That's my vision of government. I'm a progressive candidate. I think I'm the most progressive candidate in this field. I'm the only one firmly standing for single-payer health care, Medicare for all, so we can show up and help instead of fighting. I'm proposing a fair tax on carbon so we understand the wages of externalities and our use of carbon. I'm against casinos. I think it will harm our communities and we need to go there. I'm for fair taxation, in which people at higher levels of income pay higher rates and people at lower levels of income pay lower rates, because we need to show up to help. My campaign is a campaign about values. Those values are social justice and compassion and equality. They're Finn Hackett's values. I don't want Finn to feel that not everybody's as lucky as he is to show up to help. I want us to show up, and that means government that stands for that. That's going to take a fight. I want to have that fight, and I want to be your governor. Thank you very much.
Next, we'd like to hear from Martha Coakley.
So good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here on this kind of rainy May day, but I appreciate the chances. I have to be with Don and Juliet and Steve and Joe, actually getting a great education about this stuff, wonderful stuff that's going on here in Massachusetts. And we are at a critical point. You have great choices for governor. You have great choices for candidates to make sure in November that we continue doing what we've done as Democrats, which is move forward, try to recover our economy, and make room for everybody on that economic ladder. And so I believe that Massachusetts has some great choices and opportunities ahead. We have challenges, there's no question about it, but we also have the resources and the opportunity to make sure we keep moving forward to build an economy that will level the playing field. I know that sounds contradictory, but we can be prosperous and fair. You know, I ran for Attorney General, and I know that many of you know I served as your district attorney here in Middlesex County for many years, and saw what happened when kids didn't get a good education, or fell off the track or became addicted. I have seen what has happened when we don't give kids the great opportunity. But we do now have the opportunity to say, let's build an economy that's going to work for us. When Deval Patrick ran and I ran, on a platform of building a healthy economy, Wall Street had other ideas. They crashed our economy. They gambled with your money and mine. They got bailed out and we did not. And we have spent the last 8 years building back slowly, and not fast enough for many people, building back slowly to be where we should be and where we can be, I believe, with the exciting opportunities ahead. So this is what I think we can do in Massachusetts. If we invest in our kids, in our workforce, if we continue the growth that we've seen in our innovation economy, our high tech, our biotech, our tech, but also our more conventional industries, our precision manufacturing, our West smart farming, the kinds of growth that will let us put down roots, as many of you have here in these great communities out in Middlesex County, where your kids go to school, where you can see opportunities for them to have jobs and their kids to have jobs in places where the quality of life and the quality of air are things that matter. And so it is important, and I'll quote Don on this, it's important that we all show up to make sure that we make the right choices and continue to stay engaged in making sure every child has a good early pre-K. We know that that works and we need to invest in that. We should learn from what we've seen works in our schools, from our charter schools and our pilot schools and our innovation schools, about giving kids more time, not just for STEM and technology, but also for arts. Maybe a little bit of recess would be a good thing, and to make sure that our kids are learning to learn, not just learning for a test. That's not going to prepare them for a global economy. And let's make sure they learn computer science. I'll tell you a quick story about meeting some kids in Malden High School not too long ago. I'd gone for an hour of coding, and these kids, many of whom are first generation, for whom English is not their first language, were so excited about what they were learning. And they said to me, their teacher, Paul Marks, who had the kids working in groups and getting the essence of what it was to learn and to have the skills to learn. And they said to me, Mr. Marks teaches us how to walk and we learn how to fly. And I thought, this is what we want for all of our kids here in Massachusetts, and we can do it. We invest in those kids, we invest in those folks who want the skills to be able to be successful, we raise the minimum wage, we give people earned sick time, we get this economy turned around on our terms, and we will be successful. And one quick last thing, and I appreciate that I've taken my 5 minutes. We need, in 2014, to treat mental and behavioral health the way we do physical health. We can do that here in Massachusetts, and we will. I'd love your vote at the convention. I'd love to have you work with us, but most important, we have to make sure that we continue our progress as Democrats here in Massachusetts. Thanks for being here today. Happy Mother's Day to our moms.
Let's hear from Steve Grossman. What have you got to say?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So if Charles Dickens came back and wrote a story about this state today, in 2014, he'd write a book called A Tale of Two Commonwealths. One part of this Commonwealth doing unbelievably well. Think life sciences, think big data, think Genzyme, think clean tech, think education, think research, think all the things that we want, and think all about all the things that are happening in Metro West that are powering an innovation economy forward. But there's another Commonwealth, a Commonwealth that's left out and left behind. This morning as we're sitting here, there are 237,000 people out of work. 800,000 people are on food stamps. 1 million people will wake up Monday as they woke up yesterday and don't have a single day of earned sick time. When I'm governor, I'll change that. Those are the things I think we have to worry about. I'm running for governor to build one Commonwealth that levels the playing field and leaves no one behind. Let me tell you 2 stories that dramatize that. A few weeks ago, Karen Spilka's colleague, Sal DiDomenico, who represents the city of Everett, said, I want to endorse you, but I want you to come to the Webster School. That's in Everett. Everett is an older industrial city, one of our gateway communities. 54 languages are spoken in the Everett Public Schools. I walked into Webster School because every young person in Everett, every 3- and 4-year-old in Everett, has a chance to go to school and learn how to read. They have universal pre-K and have since the 90s. I walked into the classroom run by a wonderful teacher named Crystal Langoni. A little boy grabbed my hand. He sat me down on one of those little wooden chairs that you sit on when you're 4 years old. They sang the Star-Spangled Banner. He took me over to his little plastic box. He said, I want you to see my science experiment, my discovery center. And then he took me over to a board and he says, look at my words. I said, you're learning the letter L. He said, we all are. That's our letter this week. I said, and that word at the top, that's your favorite word? He says, yeah, lobster is my favorite word. I said, have you ever had a lobster? He says, no, I've never had a lobster, but it's my favorite word. Why do I tell you the story? I tell you the story because this little boy, his eyes were shining. He was learning, he was growing, he was flourishing. He had an opportunity to learn how to read. How can we tell the people of this Commonwealth that we are the #1 state in public education in America, based on test scores, when we leave 30,000 children behind every single morning? The time has come to stop talking about universal pre-K and investing in universal pre-K. That's one of our priorities. At the other end of the spectrum, Karen Spilka, who's been my partner for the last 3.5 years, who's endorsed my candidacy, and who has been the leader in the state Senate, the leader in the legislature on the innovation economy, on technology, and how it can power our economy forward, took me recently to a company in Natick called Infinium. Infinium is a startup company that manufactures rare earth metals, but it does it in a way that's totally carbonless and totally environmentally sound. They will create over the next few years hundreds of jobs right here in Metro West. Infinium is a wonderful company, and it's an example of what we can do if we invest wisely in clean tech and we think about a carbonless environment. I'm your state treasurer. I oversee $58 billion of pension funds, and I've come out publicly and said we should divest from carbon fuels, we should divest from companies in our pension funds that are in the fossil fuel business. Massachusetts can be a national leader, as the governor has been over these last few years, in building an environment of wind and solar and electric cars and better public transportation. Transportation is a huge priority here in the Metro West. But if we can build smart growth, if we can build transportation around our transportation centers and keep people out of their cars and using public transportation and commuter rail, we can reduce our carbon footprint dramatically, and the Metro West is the center of a lot of that. I also had the chance, thank you, I also had the chance recently to go over to Framingham State University, because Framingham State University just created an incubator for startup companies. Startup companies just don't belong in Cambridge and in Boston. Startup companies belong in every part of the state. And when I spoke at the ribbon cutting at Framingham State, and I realized just how important the innovation economy is to Metro West, these are the investments we need to make. It's about pre-K, it's about leveling the playing field, it's about one Commonwealth that leaves no one behind, it's about investing in our public colleges and universities, it's about freezing fees and tuitions at all of our public colleges and universities. Those are the investments I want to make. Those are the things I'd like to do as your governor. I very much appreciate the chance to be with you today. Thank you.
Julie, kind of.
Good morning, everyone. I am thrilled to be here, but before I begin, I want to thank the ladies over there, the High School Relay for Life team for, I have a 12-year-old daughter, so for being awake, that's good. That's a good start on a Saturday, but for what you do for everyone in this community. So thank you so much. My name is Juliet Kayam, and you can remember it because it rhymes with I am for Kayam, so for you undeclared delegates, just let it roll off your tongues. Listen, there are lots of ways to describe me. I am the mother of 3 children. I am a devoted wife. I've been a public servant most of my career, serving 2 presidents and this governor. I have been a writer, a columnist for the Boston Globe, a teacher. I am a runner and an athlete. I am also the daughter of a Lebanese immigrant family, married to a nice Jewish boy, raising 3 kids in an interfaith marriage. I am Massachusetts, as you are Massachusetts. The ways we describe ourselves are important because this moment in this campaign is not a time for caution, right? I believe in government. I believe in government's capacity to do good, as you do. But, thank you, but I also believe it can always do better. There is no finish line. There is no we're done here in Massachusetts. It's not like, oh, Deval Patrick, thank you very much, let's go to the other team. This race is about the future of this state and the state that we build. We owe that much, at least, to Deval Patrick, and I willingly join this race. because my vision for Massachusetts is the vision you have for Massachusetts, a state that is welcoming and prepared for the challenges ahead and connected to each other, and knowing that everyone has to belong to that journey. My career, as many of you know, is the basic tenets of the Democratic Party. I started off as a civil rights attorney for Deval Patrick, opening doors, leveling the playing field, believing in access as the fundamental obligation of government. And then, later, I served the governor as his Homeland Security Advisor and President Obama as Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security. Those are jobs about making us safe and secure. They are about our communities. They are about risk reduction. That is these two pieces, access and we love our children too, are who we are as Democrats. But the challenges we face are complex, and yet they are also opportunities. They are opportunities to build stronger for the risks that we face, whether it's education or an economy that seems stagnant, or climate change, or a criminal justice system that isn't working, or a data system that is still using faxes to protect our children under the Department of Children and Family Services. We need to build a 21st century government and a 21st century economy. But we cannot talk about these things in silos. The complex and crisis management skills I have, having served in Homeland Security, are ones that are relevant for this race. We are in a global economy, an interconnected world where the silos of education policy, economic policy, or infrastructure policy cannot be viewed in isolation. Universal pre-K and a commitment to universal pre-K is because those children, if we abandon them at age 3, 4, or 5, will never be with us again without tremendous input by teachers. So if we can bring children together by the end of their high school careers, they become part of our economy, right? We need to talk about infrastructure, not just because the roads are broken and there's too many potholes, but because there's a global economy out there that we need to fight for. Get the businesses here that are going to come here and stay here and employ our citizens. Everything is interconnected, and that is what makes Massachusetts amazing. Because we can solve these complex problems by harnessing the collective goodwill of all of our communities, all of the people like you who are committed to the future of this state, whether it's the private sector, the NGOs, regional transportation authorities, the legislature, anyone who wants a seat at the table. It is why I am out here fighting for criminal justice reform as well, because 30 years later, after after a focus on law and order, we've abandoned generations and generations of minority men and women who have no access back into our society. It is why I am fighting for immigration rights and access for immigrants into our economy, because what other option do I have as governor? You can't just leave classes of people behind. It is why, as someone who oversaw the National Guard and deployed men and women, or oversaw the calendar for men and women to go to a war I didn't even believe in, we owe our veterans the personalized and intimate services that the Veterans Administration has not been giving to them. This is who we are as Massachusetts. I want to end, maybe because it's Mother's Day tomorrow, and by the way, gentlemen in the room, if the woman in your life says, I don't really want anything, she is lying. That my goals as governor and mother relatively are the same. I believe the solemn duty of government is to protect our children. And to make them vibrant and educated and creative and committed to public service. But I also believe our obligation to them is to leave them the best Massachusetts that we know. So thank you very much. My name is Juliette Kaya.
Thank you. I have not seen Joe Avalone. Has anyone? Okay. We'll be moving on then. What I'd like candidates to do is each of you to go find your table, because they're spaced around the room, and that way, theoretically, there'll be room for people to move. So we're going to move on to the second part of our program, which is listening to the Lieutenant Governor candidates and seeing what they have to say for themselves. Excuse me, if you're not going to take a seat, then please be respectful of the people talking. Thank you. Okay, so because we're in alphabetical order, we're going to start with James Arena-DeRosa, who is from Holliston.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here in my hometown. I didn't have a long drive, but we were a little late because I had to pull out an old tux for my son who's going to prom. But I am here. Beth, what a great format. Thank you so much. I think this is just a great way to present and get people involved. And as a former Democratic town chair, I know how important it is, all the work that all of you do as Democrats to support the party and our candidates in the fall. I do want to start by saying that I am honored to have the endorsement of my state rep, Carolyn Dykema. I know she's here, and she's been a wonderful supporter of ours. We've been good friends with her as well. I am running for Lieutenant Governor to be an advocate for the cities and towns and people of Massachusetts, but I'm also running to be a partner to the next Democratic governor of Massachusetts. As some of you know, I left the Obama administration at the end of 2013. I was the lead official for all food and nutrition issues at agriculture. I worked with leaders throughout the Northeast region, but I also spent my time out in the community, at food banks, at schools, at local health clinics, getting to know people, making sure that we were getting food to 1 in 4 Americans that are going without food or had issues with food during the greatest recession of our lifetime. We also worked on healthier lifestyles. To give you a little bit about my background, I am from Massachusetts. I grew up here. Like I said, I'm a lifelong Red Sox fan. I grew up in a working, middle-class, second-generation immigrant family. My sisters and I were the first in our family to graduate from college, worked my way through Xaverian, worked my way through Harvard. I grew up in a home where we were taught to make a difference in the lives of others. I was profoundly influenced by the events and gatherings of the 1960s, whether it was freedom riders coming to our home, whether it was environmental meetings, labor meetings, Kennedy campaigns, all of that was ever present in my home. And all I ever wanted to do my whole life was to be a voice for the people who didn't have lobbyists on Capitol Hill or Beacon Hill. I spent a little time in the private sector on housing, but then had a leadership role at Oxfam America. Some of you may be familiar with that, but I created an advocacy program that made it more than just giving food to people and took policy issues coming out of the community experience and putting it in front of policymakers. I then was invited by the Clinton administration to run the Peace Corps here in the Northeast United States. I sent thousands of Americans around the world, not only to serve in those communities, but to build their own skills. We now live in a global economy. Cultural competency is going to be a critical life skill for all of us in the months and years ahead. Now, my heart will always be in the community. I'm a community person. I believe in the power of community. And if I'm Lieutenant Governor, I will be out among all of the cities and towns in Massachusetts. But rest assured, I am comfortable in the corridors of power. At USDA, I negotiated with governors and cabinet secretaries. I testified before legislators. I worked with mayors and municipal leaders throughout the Northeast. I led a team of senior managers that ran 15 federal food, nutrition, and agriculture programs. I'm the only candidate in this race that has administered a $12 billion annual budget. And I would remind you that your Lieutenant Governor is the potential CEO of Massachusetts. I've run a $12 billion enterprise. But I've also served on my finance committee here in Holliston. And I've also worked at the state. And I understand the really important relationship between the cities and towns and the state and the federal government. And I intend to be liaison to the cities and towns, but I will also be a voice and an advocate. I want to be a partner to the Democratic governor, but I will not be afraid to speak up. There's 3 areas that I'm working on. I care about so many things. I'll tell you about 3. First of all, too much focus on the MCAS. We have to incorporate arts and culture and sports and civics and financial literacy into the community. As a former union person, as SEIU, I was negotiating. I certainly believe that we have to fight for a minimum wage. That's not enough. We need a living wage. Too many people during the, what's that, the 1 minute? Okay, thank you. Too many people can't make the numbers work, and they were working full time. And last, around food. We have learned so much about how the food we eat impacts our health and could save billions of dollars in the Massachusetts economy and billions of dollars among businesses by focusing on healthier lifestyles. All the debate during the healthcare should have been about how we have preventative health, not work at fixing when people are sick. And it's all screwed up. It's backwards. We should focus on prevention. One quick thing before I end. Thank you. One quick thing before I end. Massachusetts ranks 48th in the country for school breakfast. Every mom and dad and school nurse and teacher in America knows a hungry child can't learn. We have a proposal to bring universal breakfast to every elementary classroom in Massachusetts because we know that kids who have breakfast will do better in school, will have less problems with discipline, and by the way, they'll do better on all those tests. So let me just close by saying this. I'm in the middle of my life's time horizon. I worry about my parents and their health care. I worry about saddling my kids with debt. I worry about the cost of living as a middle-class person. When I was deciding whether to run, People say, what are you crazy giving up a secure job? James, what will happen to you if you run? But the question I asked was, what will happen to all the people I've met along the way if I don't run? So again, my name is James Arena-DeRosa. I am running for Lieutenant Governor because I believe we live in the most extraordinary of times that requires our sacrifice and the very best of what we have to offer the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, let's welcome Leland.
Thank you. I'm also on the board of the Democratic State Committee. I've been to a lot of events, and congratulations on one of the most innovative programs I've seen, and also for getting students to come out to school on a Saturday. That's an amazing feat. To tell you a bit about myself, my father immigrated to Massachusetts in 1969. He was living in Harvard Square, putting himself through school at Boston University, back at a time when you could still do that. And walking through the square each day, the activism that he saw on the streets at the end of the 60s was unlike anything he'd ever known before. He became determined to instill in me an appreciation for how lucky I was that he moved here, but also for the freedom and opportunity that America offers. So every few years, he took the entire family back to China to visit relatives still living there. And that's where I learned that much of the world doesn't get to enjoy the same kind of freedoms and opportunities that we so often take for granted. My cousins in China can't run for office because they think they have something different to offer. They can't write an op-ed criticizing a government decision without risking reprisal on themselves or their family. They can't do what we're doing today, gathering at a grassroots level and asking questions directly to the people that are asking to represent you. My parents not only taught me the importance of civic engagement, they also pushed me to study and work hard. And it wasn't always fun having a tiger mother and a dragon dad, but it got me through school at Stanford and later Harvard and MIT, which all led to opportunities to work in the innovation economy in Kendall Square, investing in companies from clean tech to mobile to internet infrastructure that were creating jobs and improving lives. But as much fun as that was, the lessons of my youth still spoke to me, and I wanted to be giving back. I was actually going to volunteer in a campaign, but in 2009, I decided to run for the Cambridge City Council because no one was talking about the issues that I thought were most important at the time. Namely, how do we make sure that the innovation economy isn't just helping the people with PhDs from MIT, but people with cheer degrees, GEDs, every single person in the community? How are we making sure that the kids growing up in public housing, literally 2 blocks away from Microsoft and Google, were getting the education, the support, and the training they needed to one day work there? How are we making sure that every entrepreneur, regardless if they had connections to MIT, had the support they need to start their business? So over the last 5 years, as a member of the Cambridge City Council, I've earned a reputation as one of the most progressive, productive, responsive members of the council. I've stood shoulder to shoulder with union members, fighting for fair wages and equitable treatment. I've fought to improve our school system with universal pre-K, quality after-school STEM programming, making sure that the 30% of kids in our public housing that don't have internet at home get it, and they will. And I've built bridges. I had the first ever joint meeting between the Boston and Cambridge City Councils in the history of Boston and Cambridge. It was mind-blowing that it was possible at the time. But to try and find some common solutions to our shared challenges. And as the only person in the Lieutenant Governor's race who's currently elected, with 5 years of experience on the council under my belt, no matter what your top issue is, whether it's raising the minimum wage, our divestment from fossil fuels, or services for seniors to age in place, I not only have talking points, I have a track record you can point to and look at and be confident I can do the job day one. I'll also say 3 years ago, I wrote a letter to an op-ed in the Globe criticizing the governor over what I thought were policies that were pitting cities against each other instead of encouraging us to work together. His reprisal to me, unlike what it would have been to my cousins, was to appoint me to the board of our state's economic development agency, where we've been going around and had the opportunity to invest in people and places across the Commonwealth that have too often been left behind. One example, one project we've been working on is called mass broadband. We've been laying a fiber network all across western Massachusetts and the Cape that's connecting cities and towns that previously only had access to dial-up. When we lit it up, we were in a school much like this one, and it wasn't your typical ribbon cutting though. He literally flicked the switch on the wall, and immediately we were on a video conference with these kids in Otis, some kids in South America, and NASA. Literally impossible the day before. That is why we need to double down on the investments in education, innovation, and infrastructure that Governor Patrick has led and that I've been working on with him. It's fundamentally a question of equity. Because whether you're a kid in Otis or a kid in public housing in Cambridge, if you can't go home and Wikipedia or Google for your homework at night, you can't compete with your classmates, let alone with kids halfway around the world. If you're an entrepreneur anywhere else in the state and you don't have access to the resources and tools that people at MIT also often take for granted, you can't help start your business. If you put Silicon Valley on top of Massachusetts, if you put Silicon Valley on top of Massachusetts, it would literally stretch from one end to the other. But it's an hour from San Francisco to Stanford, another hour from Stanford to San Jose. It's an hour from Boston to Worcester, an hour from Worcester past Springfield to the end of the state, and we act like it's a different part of the world. We need to be thinking about the entire Commonwealth and integrating and making sure that we're creating jobs everywhere. That's how we're going to compete and grow in the next century. You know, I started by talking about you know, the opportunities and the challenges. If your neighbor paints and improves their house, your home value goes up. Imagine if we solve those challenges and look to the next opportunities, divesting from coal and leading the nation in that, in clean tech technologies, and making sure that we're reducing the cost of healthcare with single payer, making sure that every kid graduates from high school with knowing the basics of coding. We can do all that, but only if we are willing to invest in each other and ourselves. And this all comes back, my father, when he first immigrated, what kept him here was the promise and the opportunity to try and make a better life for his kids. And you know, I'm a little bit late to the race, which is why I need your help. I have an 8-month-old daughter at home. And so other people were running around. I was holding my wife's hand in pregnancy and trying to figure out how to put on diapers. I'm still working on that one. So I've been a little bit late to the race, but having a daughter of my own, I finally get what my father must have felt, and I think what every parent feels. The responsibility to make sure that your kid has even more opportunities to succeed than you had. So that's why I'm asking not just for your vote at the convention if you're a delegate, not just for your support in September, not just to make sure that Democrats win in November, but to work with me as your next lieutenant governor next year. Ever since I've joined the council, my personal cell phone has been on the website. If you pick up one piece of my literature, my cell phone is on that literature. You can call it now, it'll ring my phone. My personal email, I answer all of it. I want to work with you. Because every idea I've ever had, everything I've ever accomplished in the council hasn't come from me, it's come from the community. And that's how I want to be as your lieutenant governor. My name is Leland Chung, and frankly, I just ask your support. Thank you.
Okay, let's welcome Steve Kerrigan to the podium.
Thank you very much, and thanks all of you. You know, this is a great, and Leland hit it right on the head. This is a great format. You know, we have been doing this for quite a while all over Massachusetts, and we've. I think I can speak for Mike and everybody else here that it gets a little bit much when we have to listen. Well, I could give Mike's speech, Mike could give my speech. So it does. It gives us a great opportunity to actually talk to the voters separately after this. So I will be as brief as possible, and those who've seen me speak know that's really difficult for me. So I will try. But I'm just here to say thank you. You know, you guys have done so much for our party and for our Commonwealth, and I wanted to come and say thank you. And how lucky are we? I mean, look at the field of candidates that we have for governor, for lieutenant governor. You'll hear from the treasurer candidates and the AG candidates later. We're incredibly blessed. I've been involved in Massachusetts politics for 25 years. And I think this is probably the most talented field, probably excepting me, you know, because I don't want to brag about myself, but that we've ever seen. I mean, there's 18 folks who will be on the Democratic ballot, and that's what we bring to this campaign. You know, we bring the diversity of ideas and ideologies and geography that matter to people in Massachusetts. You know, and on the other side, they are literally having a fight in the newspaper every day about whether or not 2 people should run for governor, and we've got 5 people running for governor. They're so afraid of any conflict or division in the Republican Party that they're fighting just to keep one other guy off the ballot. I think the number of candidates we have is amazing and tremendous and a great honor to us and to all of you for the great work you guys do for the Democratic Party. So that was a long lead-in, so now I probably have a 30-second close. No. Just a little bit about me. I am from Lancaster, Massachusetts, a little tiny town in North Worcester County. Both my parents are union members. My dad's a retired utility worker for Mass Electric. He used to climb utility poles with spikes on his feet. My mom is still in her 70s. She is still the public school secretary at our public elementary school. And my dad spends most afternoons trying to convince her that the fate of public education rests on her staying at work and not joining him in retirement. He's been successful for about 15 years, so he hopes he can keep that going. But I'm running for lieutenant governor because I think it's time, you know, that government get back in the business of solving problems. You know, there's lit that'll tell you a little bit about who I am and what I've done in my career, but I've been blessed to have a great opportunity to serve my community, my Commonwealth, and my country. And what I've learned along the way is what my old boss, Senator Ted Kennedy, used to say all the time, which was, if you work hard, if you stick to your principles, if you don't let obstacles get in your way, and if you believe that if nobody, a lot of great things can get done if nobody cares who gets the credit. If you focus on those things, then we can really make Massachusetts shine, and that's what we're trying to do with this campaign. What we can't do is not about what I've already done, it's really about what we need to do together. You know, we need to engage Massachusetts in a discussion about our future. We need to start talking about the changes we need to make, because folks, we need a government that does the job it says it's going to do. We need a government that's responsive to the needs and the sacrifices that you make each and every day as taxpayers. And we need a government that will step up and solve problems that we face each and every day. I want the next governor, the day after the election, not the day after the inauguration, to appoint me to chair a competitiveness council that will focus on all aspects of life across Massachusetts and make Massachusetts more competitive. We are doing incredibly well in several levels of government and statistics, but there's so much more we can do. We look at the tragedy at DCF and the fact that an agency that is underfunded, by the way, the underfunding of which began under Secretary of Health and Human Services Charlie Baker back in 1992, which we shouldn't let him forget over the course of this campaign. But you look at examples like that. You look at the MBTA assessments even out here. We were talking about this just a little while ago. MBTA assesses communities out here and assesses mine in Lancaster for services that you don't get. And I think that's frankly, it adds to the constant debate and discussion that all of you people have, I'm sure, in your neighborhoods and your towns about a lack of trust in government. Folks just don't believe that government is there to help them anymore. And we all know that it can be. It can have an incredible role in moving our Commonwealth forward, but we have to engage everybody together. Governing is about prioritizing. Government is about making sure that we can get things done. That's what I've done my entire career, whether it was when I was a selectman in Lancaster or working for Senator Ted Kennedy or running small nonprofits. I've always said to my team that we're in the solutions business. And that's what government needs to be about. I don't think, we all agree on making sure we increase the minimum wage and making sure that our politics and our policies reflect our values here in Massachusetts and infrastructure improvements and all those things. We can't do any of those things if we don't build back the trust that has been lost between the voters and their government. That's what I want to do as your representative governor. I want to bring everybody into the process because that's the only way we can move Massachusetts forward in a real substantial way. So, I'll just wrap up by saying, as I mentioned, my father's a union member. When I was a little kid, I thought I was the luckiest kid in the whole wide world. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and my father was around all the time. And we had pancakes for dinner virtually every night, and I love having breakfast food for dinner. And it wasn't until I was working for Senator Kennedy years later that I realized that we did that because that's all we could afford under the strike fund. My dad and his buddies and brothers and sisters in organized labor had been on strike for over 6 months. My mother had to get the job that she still has at the school just to help keep food on the table. But for the support of his union and of the Democratic Party and all of you and folks in rooms like this for decades before, and I hope in rooms like this for decades to come, I wouldn't be here today. Without that support, we wouldn't have been able to survive those difficult times. And there are families like that all across Massachusetts, each and every day fighting just to make a living and to get by. When we started the caucuses season, which seems like 1,000 years ago, I had dinner with my partner, Jacob, right after the first day of long caucuses, and I sat with him and I said, God, you get up there and you're going to do your entire life in 2 minutes and try to convince everybody to vote for you at the convention. And he just sort of looked across the table and he said, that's what unemployed people go through every day. They go into a job interview, they've got to encapsulate everything about their life and why they have value to this company or to this community in 2 minutes, or they get shut off. I want to be the lieutenant governor who will make sure that our government is focused on moving everybody forward. She's about to cut me off, so I'm going to make sure. I told you it's tough to be brief. She likes me, but no. But seriously, just thank you guys for everything that you've done for our party. If you are a delegate of the convention, I'd love your vote in 5 weeks from today. If you are not a delegate, I'd love your vote September 9th and then November 4th. So on November 5th, we can all together continue to move Massachusetts forward. Thanks very much.
And the last Lieutenant Governor candidate today, Michael Lake.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, come on, a little louder. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Much better, much better. My name is Mike Lake, and I'm running to be our next Lieutenant Governor. And as I tell people all across the Commonwealth, I'm running not to fill an office, but to make a difference. And I was talking to Sam, who had to leave already, a little earlier this morning. And Sam was reminding me of how he grew up. He was talking about his mom, teaching him that when you saw somebody in the gutter, it was your responsibility to go over and pick them up. You see, we're all here this morning, and I thank you for being here, because we believe in something. We believe in something that's bigger than ourselves. We believe in something that's bigger than our party. We believe in something that I call the Massachusetts Promise. It's the promise of high-quality education for every child. It's the promise of safe communities so that they can grow up without fear of violence. And it's the promise of jobs that pay a livable wage. Tonight alone in Massachusetts, there will be more than 4,000 families that have no home to go to. 4,000 families. 29% of those families had a working adult. Now think about that. You could work 40 hours a week and not afford a roof over your head or 3 meals on the table for your family each day. This is wrong in Massachusetts. We are one of the wealthiest states, and the wealthiest nation this planet has ever known, and our middle class is shrinking. The income inequality gap is growing. You know, we're talking about raising minimum wage, and of course I'm a supporter of that. But we need to raise it to a livable wage. Thank you. You know, I was selected to be among 25 leaders from across the country to participate in a conference. And I don't know what the criteria was, frankly, because it was myself and one of the others was a woman running for the U.S. Senate as a Tea Party candidate. So whatever criteria they were using was a little off somewhere. But during this conference, we talked about the issue of raising the minimum wage. And as I explained to her and I explained to people across the Commonwealth, had we indexed minimum wage in 1968 to inflation, we'd be paying over $10 an hour already. Which is simply to say what you could afford after 40 hours worth of work in 1968, you should be able to afford in 2014. Had we indexed minimum wage to productivity, which is to say people are producing more, businesses are selling more, and those workers deserve a little slice of that action, we'd be paying over $22 an hour. But the real striking thing is had we indexed minimum wage to executive compensation, we'd be paying over $66 an hour. Now this woman jumped up out of her seat, red in the face, screaming all the reasons why that was ridiculous. Finally, I can't even say she calmed down. When she finally sat down, I stood up and I said, Jamie, you've missed the whole point. You see, by definition of indexing, if one end of the extreme is ridiculous, the other end of the extreme is equally ridiculous. We are expecting families to survive, and we're not even giving them pennies that they need to do so. Massachusetts is known as liberal Massachusetts. Well, you know something? We need to stop being apologetic for that. We need to earn that title. And I believe that Massachusetts has a future ahead of us that will do just that. You see, Charlie Baker represents the past. It is so much work to make up for 4 Republican governors in this state. One administration can't do it. We need another Democratic administration to keep the ball moving forward, to make sure that working families in Massachusetts have an opportunity, to make sure that every child in Massachusetts has access to the Massachusetts Promise. I'm asking for your support because we need to continue to move Massachusetts forward. We need to deliver on the Massachusetts Promise. So for those of you who are going to the convention, I ask for your vote there. And by the way, the Friday of the convention happens to be my birthday. So we're doing a party, and I hope you'll join us there as well. For the rest of you, I'm asking for your vote in September and again in November. But between now and then, I'm asking all of you to do me a favor. Do me a favor, not for me or my campaign, but for our party. Talk about the Lieutenant Governor's office. Talk about the Treasurer's office and the AG's office. And talk, of course, about the Governor's office. Because the fact of the matter is people aren't paying attention. We're relying on you to get the word out there. It's Massachusetts' future at stake, and every one of us have the power to make a difference. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your support. I look forward to talking with you when this is over.
All right, so you guys know the wrap. We're going to break for 20 minutes. If the candidates could go to your tables, just so you're sort of spaced out. Perhaps, do you know where your table is, Mike? Okay, good. All right, he's on the ball. So we'll take 20 minutes, and then we'll get back and hear from our treasurer candidates. Thank you.